Okay, it's recording.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, of the 7 habits of highly effective people, now we're up to habit 3, put first things first. That is the habit of personal management. And let's see, one of the quotes from Stephen R. Covey regarding this: the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So on our maturity continuum, we're approaching moving from dependence to independence. With habit 3, contributing to our private victories before we can become fully independent and start working more on our own. So this principle, or this habit, is based on the principles of focus, integrity, discipline, and prioritization. So some of the common paradigms for this one, let me flip one ahead. A common paradigm is people will say, oh, I spend time on what's most urgent. A highly effective paradigm is spending time on what's most important. Those translate into practices. Common practices are spending most of your time on managing crises and other people's agendas, trying to do it all, planning sporadically or not at all, giving in to pressures of the moment. You can jump on ahead. And highly effective practices are focusing on your highest priorities, eliminating the unimportant, planning every week, and staying true in the moment of choice, which we'll get to at the end. So here's one of the homework sheets, which you can fill out on your own time. It's, you write down in both your work and your personal life something that you can do on a regular basis. You could write down a couple of things that you're not doing now that you could do on a regular basis that would make a significant positive difference in your work and personal life. Sal, would you like to come up with an example of that?
Yes, I think, well, one of the things I always worked on and wanted to do was increase my physical movement and get back to exercise. So I think I've successfully kind of achieved that. That's made a big difference to me. My work life, I would say contacting continuously more people. So just constantly adding new people into the funnel, or, setting a goal to add 2 people a week or whatever it might be into the Renew with Redox group. Because as we know, it's a funnel, and it's all about filling the funnel in hope that people will pop at different times. So, I had one that I told about a seer, and within the hour, they had gone home and enrolled, so that was a very fast transfer. There's others that we know can take 9 months or 3 months or, all different amounts of time. So for me, I think I need to bring back to adding more people to Renew and really focusing on talking to more people, because it's about having that funnel full all the time.
One of the things, the differences to do that I had done last year was going to bed at a decent hour and getting more sleep. Because I found that Sally always goes to bed well in advance of me. She turns into a pumpkin and disappears. And I would either stay up doing work-related stuff for her, scanning all of her notes for work, or just messing around watching on Netflix or playing on the Xbox. And that was the one thing that prevented me from being able to get up in the morning, go to the gym and start, engaging in that sort of thing. So just getting to bed early, and of course, related to the prioritization of this habit, I had to decide exactly what was important and what I was going to do, because being able to get up that early meant that, I have to figure out exactly when I'm going to do the scanning for Sally and that sort of stuff. Oh yeah. This is, I don't know how much scanning this is, but I've got a stack of
That's
this.
how far behind he is now.
Well, no, well, sort of. Yeah, I guess this is the behind stack.
But he looks good. He's got a six-pack.
I probably have. Well, not quite. I have a stack of this. Probably, if you add it up since you started doing this, it would be, I don't know, a meter, more than a meter tall. And I'm the only person that's ever done any of the scan. So I got to figure out when to do that. That takes prioritization. Okay, so you can jump ahead to focusing on the highest priorities. This is related to, this is called the time matrix. And they talk about these quadrants quite a lot. As you can see, they're divided into things that are important and not important, and things that are urgent and not urgent. And the quadrant of waste is where not urgent and not important coincide. So that's the stuff that needs to be eliminated. So if there's things that work that really aren't contributing, that needs to be get rid of. And of course, television, gaming, internet, social media scrolling, that all falls in that category. That's one of the things that Sally eliminated.
What about maths? Who watches maths? Stupid TV show I was introduced to last night.
Married at First Sight. She's
Married at First Sight.
So the important things are activities that represent your mission, roles, values, and your high priority goals. Urgent things are activities that require immediate attention. So a lot of stuff at work falls in the urgent but not important area. Doing unnecessary reports. This is where a lot of efficiencies come from. If you're not the manager. This happened to me a lot of times at Boeing when management was worried about meeting a deadline. You ended up spending more of your time reporting on your progress than actually making forward progress, and it was a massive distraction cycle. So those things need to be cut out and minimized as much as possible. Where you want to be is in the quadrant 2, where importance and not urgent come into play. So that's where you're most effective. You can do your proactive work, important goals, your creative thinking, planning and prevention, relationship building, learning and renewal, and recreation. So the Quadrants Self-Check, you can ask yourself these questions as regularly as you need to keep a handle on things. Which quadrant are you in? Think about the importance and the urgency and where it falls in. How long have I been there? Why are you in that quadrant? And what are the consequences of being in that quadrant? So here, the next sheet is a worksheet where you can fill in some of these things. What are some of your activities in your typical day or week? And you can assign each one to a quadrant based on its importance and its urgency. And then after you've figured out some of these things, you can describe how you will eliminate the unimportant quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 activities. At the very least, you should be in quadrant 1, necessity, and quadrant 2, effectiveness. And then there's another one for the workplace. So it lists a lot of typical workplace sort of things. And as I said, a lot of workplace items fall into this distraction area. And a lot of that stuff can be cut out. Like for me, I tend not to look at most of my work emails because most of them are just pointless. So I try to filter those off as much as possible. So,
and that can be watching, Zoom after Zoom after Zoom and not actually contacting people and being proactive in building the business. So, it's like you can't be watching every Zoom if you've only got so much time in the week or the day. You have to try and start eliminating, and maybe watching recordings and be contacting people. So
it's always good to keep, your familiarity and your skills and your knowledge base up. However, at the expense of, contacting people, that's something that needs to be prioritized. So then you can write down some of your own activities that are chronically in the third quadrant, and then some ideas of reducing it. Another worksheet here lists 5 or 6 important things you want to put first in your work and your personal life, and then you can prioritize those. So that just allows you to think about a few things out loud and get it written down. All right. You have anything to mention about that one? Or
I don't know. Maybe we could ask someone if they've got anything that they'd like to add here. 5 or 6 important things. So what are some of the important things that we could talk about there? You know, what's important in our life, in our work life or our personal life right now? Does anyone want to throw out a few ideas?
Work life's putting time into building.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Lynn?
I just think for me personally, it's always just working through spirit, making sure that just keeps me on track.
Yep. So constantly being able to have that clear head for me is, you know, having a few days away at the beach and being quiet and still and waking up and just sitting and listening to birds and being, you know, because when you've got that empty space, that's when the good stuff comes in. And I really did feel it and notice it over these last few days where I had that quiet time to just try and be present. And that's one of the things I'm trying to work on is just stopping and being present and still. Doing what you're doing now and not trying to multitask a lot of things and really removing a lot of those unnecessary, wasteful time wasters. You know, so it's funny because the girls I was away with this weekend, only one's in a SEA, but she's a big time CFO and works nonstop and, you know, loves the product. And it was really interesting the way they prioritized their time, even though we were on a girls' kind of getaway. There was so much time spent on gadgeting and watching maths. You know, for them to be able to watch Married at First Sight last night at 7 o'clock, they were all behind. So for the 2 days leading up to Sunday, they're trying to catch up. So they've got it on their phones and their headphones. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And it's like, I'm listening to an Oprah or podcast or something cool. And they're watching. And I'd never seen maths. So I was like, I have no idea. And then they made us sit like a slumber party in this bed, you know, where we all watched maths. And I'm sitting there, and this other friend and I, she's a yoga teacher and very grounded and, you know, just nothing is Gretchen, right? It's like the two of us, she's like, are they serious? And they're so worked up about this guy leaving and those two joining. And
oh, it's really addictive. That's why it's terrible.
It's terrible. I'm like, this is not even real.
It's quadrant 4.
It's quadrant 4, you know. And I said, don't you guys, and they're so on in their job and working and traveling, and they've got hundreds of people that report to them, you know. And I'm like, don't you guys at the end of the day just want to stop? And she goes, yeah, that's what sleep's for. She goes, this is like empty stuff and it empties our brain. And it's like it finished and I was like crazy with all this shit going through my head. But anyway, it's like what's important. I guess that's how they, I don't know, different.
Yeah, one of the things for me is definitely the whole weekly scheduling thing. That'll be the next page coming up. Like I was too busy to really get into it this week, and now this completely jumped out at me at surprise yet again, because I had not sat down and written down what my plan for the week was. So I need to be more consistent with that. I am much better than I used to be, but the planning needs to happen. I need to make it a priority every Sunday night to at least. I mean, last week I didn't sit down and write everything down, but I very distinctly sat and thought about, okay, what's on my list for this week, and I at least thought about it. And this week I gave it no thought, and I'm already.
I started to use one of my ASEA notebooks as my list thing, because I was writing lists on scrap bits of paper. And at least now I've got my lists all written out, and I can tick off and cross off, and I don't throw them out. So if I have to refer back to something that was on my list, it's always there. And I've got so many of these books piling up now that it just kind of sits on my desk, and I can, you know, it's part of my to-do list that I can write on a Sunday night or a Monday morning before my week starts. So when I get those little blocks of time, I can come to it and go, I've got to call Lynn's person, or I've got to call so-and-so. Because if they don't answer in that time, then I get a bit stuck in trying to get back to them, because most of the time they don't call me back. So that's something I've really tried to implement now, is just having my lists of people to call back. Because, you know, I've got people saying, can you call this person and can you call this person? And, you know, I'm happy to do it, but if they don't answer, it kind of falls off my schedule, because it's, so here I can cross it off and tick it off and refer back to it, and then put it on the next kind of week's list. So it's finding a system that works for you in your space.
I find like I have lists and to-do lists on OneNote and stuff, but I definitely find I have to write it on a piece of paper that I can have in front of me, stick in my pocket, and physically cross it out, or have on my desk in front of me. Otherwise, it just gets lost. If it's in the computer, I like to have the list on the computer for especially long-term stuff, but I have to replicate it on the short term onto the piece of paper, or it doesn't work for me. So remember, this is habit 3, putting first things first. So that the main component of that is planning every week. So here we have, I'll show you a little when you take the 7 Habits class, they give you these cards, which I've kind of replicated the main portion of there. They're quite thick, but so it looks like this. So you can see it looks similar to the graphic there.
Oh, well, I think I need to.
Yeah. So all it does is you list down your big rocks. So on the left, you just write a role, like I'm the manager at work, I'm a parent. You know, when I started this, I was trying to get my U.S. Tax stuff sorted out. So one of my roles was U.S. taxpayer, and so I put one of my big rocks, must, schedule meeting with American accountant to, sort out this paperwork, that sort of thing. So you write down weekly, and you can just copy it out or put it on a piece of paper, but it's just in that format. You put the role, and then you put the
challenge or
the item that you need to do, like whatever needs to be accomplished. I think I wrote, how do I move this forward? Maybe you should do it. There's a sample one and the previous one. Don't go back. Yeah, there we go. So here are some sample ones. Work role, project manager. You might need to write a quarterly report that week. You might need to prepare a budget proposal. In a personal role as a parent, you might need to meet with your child's teacher, and you want to schedule family dinners on particular nights of the week. So the plan needs to connect with your mission, roles, and goals. You have to think about what keywords from your personal mission statement will help guide your direction that week, which roles would benefit from your attention that week, how you can achieve balance in your roles each week, and which long-term goals do you want to make progress on in this particular week. The big rocks. So actually, a good video, I'm sure you've seen this on YouTube at some point. They have the analogy where, and Stephen Covey may have actually come up with this one, but he's got this bucket, and he brings this lady up in front of a conference, and he's got a whole bunch of, good-sized, different colored rocks with labels on them. Parent, manager, all these sorts of things. And he has the lady pick out the rocks and try and put them in the bucket, and they don't all fit in, so it just doesn't work. And so then what they do, what do they do?
So then they put in little rocks.
Yeah. So first she puts in the big rocks, and then she takes and then they have a second category of smaller issues like schedule a meeting, take out the garbage. Little rocks, then you start adding the little rocks, and it all just piles up above the bucket. But if you put in all the big rocks in the proper order, everything.
If you
just
put no,
falls
but
in
if you put
place.
the small stuff in first,
Yeah.
there's no room for the big rocks.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing I've seen is that you think the jar's full and then you add in BR or liquid and it fills in all the spaces between. But if you start with all the little stuff and fill it with the fluid, there's no room to add all the other stuff. So you
Right,
should
so-
start with the big
right.
rocks and then add the little
So,
stuff.
and that's important. You're not going to fit every big rock in, so you have to prioritize and decide exactly which big rocks you want to go into your bucket. So the bucket is representative of time, right? So that's why they call it the big rocks. You pick the biggest rocks you want to deal with that week, and then you can fit in all the little ones around it. And the joke, which someone came up with probably 10 years later, was even after the bucket is completely full, you can still pour in a beer around everything.
There's still time to have a
So
beer.
there's still time for it. But I'll show you something. Go back. So it says, so after you fill out your roles and what you want to do this week, then you organize the rest. So what they've done here is in the textbook. So this is just a weekly planner. So all the green squares here are the big rocks that they filled into their weekly planner.
It's a bit
And
small for us to see, Rob.
sorry.
We can only see it on the tiny wee screen, so it's a bit
Yeah.
too.
Well, it's just an example of a weekly planner with the big rocks distributed throughout it, right? So once you do that, you pick your big rocks, you see how they fit into your week, and then you can select the little rocks you want to fit in around. But you might have to save some of the big rocks for the week after. That's just. So the planning tips are, before the week begins, you need to do it. Find someplace quiet and allow yourself about 20 or 30 minutes just to go through everything and prioritize and think of everything you need to do. So that's the big thing, which I need to be doing Sunday evenings.
Yeah, the best time I think Sunday evenings.
Yeah. So the last bit here is stay true in the moment of choice. So they've just provided a couple of situational examples that to allow you to kind of practice some of these habits. So what you should do is go through some of these, print it out, have a look at the previous slides, and then look at these situations and then write down exactly how you would handle that situation utilizing exactly the stuff covered on the previous slides. So they give you two situations, one with work and one with family. And then it gives you a little something to write down where you consider the things that you selected on those and how what you learned with all the habit 3 habits you can stay true making the choice that you want. So we might want to talk about this a little bit next week because it is fairly subjective, and it would be good to get feedback from different people. Do you want to add anything to this particular one?
Yeah, no, I think that's true.
I don't think I should have put it page 65 because that's not there. Let me see what's on 65. Just no, yeah, 65 is the what could make a difference. So that was what's the one thing you could do on a regular basis that you're not doing now. So, yeah, so the two things that you wrote down for work and personal, what's the one thing you could make a difference? How would those two things help you stay true in a moment of choice that you might be confronted with? So that's what that was. Kind of ties it all together. Okay.
Very cool. Awesome.
Are you
Thank you.
online again?
Has anyone got any questions?
Just got a bit unstable.
So you'll put those slides up.
I'll add them into the Shine Bright team. Yeah, now. So you can go through and print off the ones you like or have them on your phone when you answer them.
Can I edit my typos that I found once they're
Oh, I didn't see
posted?
any.
No, well, just that one, page 65.
Oh,
I'd say.
that's
But I noticed on, I don't know, habit 2, there was a few typos I didn't like either.
I'm really keen to know what you would do with question 1.
You
Apart
ready
from
to
putting
meet,
here,
this one, you ready to meet with Will? You're way behind for the day.
yeah.
You have 45 unopened emails and several voicemails you've not listened to. Shelley comes to you and asks, have you completed that report you promised me? You haven't. How will you stay true in the moment of choice using habit 3 concepts and practices? So you have to go, do you want to answer this? Seems you've done before. I was going to say what I
He's forgot.
I want you to. So, well, the highly effective paradigm is spending time on what's most important. So what have you prioritized? Have you prioritized work emergencies, or have you prioritized time with your family?
Yeah, but she's still asking you, you haven't done the report. So how will you stay true?
Well,
I mean, I think I would, well, if the emails have nothing to do with the report, then clearly you're going to put that in the waste bucket for the moment.
most of those are
and the
probably
voicemails
wasted
probably
time.
aren't related to,
Yeah.
because you're sitting there, she's probably showed up and you're sitting there going through. I mean, that's one of my faults. The first thing I tend to do when I sit at my computer once a week for the long chunk is I go through my emails, because I'll try and address things as they come up, but the ones that are too hard in the moment because I'm with a client or busy, I wait. And it means that I've got to print something, and then I've got a big stack here that I pay the bills, or it's kid stuff, where if I've got something important, like call one of Lynn's people, which is, probably more important, but it's easier for me to sit and go through my emails. So it's about really being conscious in the moment about what is that big rock that you're trying to do, and do that first. Because this really, clearing through emails can be done half asleep. I don't need the prime of my day where I'm concentrating, focused, and on ball to be doing some of this waste stuff.
And I would think about it in order of priority. If I leave someone an email, I don't expect an answer maybe even that week. If I send them a voicemail, if I need to know something right away, I don't even leave a voicemail. I just keep calling back. So anyone that's left emails or voicemails, forget it. That's low priority. You can just knock that off the list. Yeah, the next thing is you look at your schedule for the week. Did you promise this report to Shelley by today, or did you promise it next week? If you promise it next week, then it's easy. You just say, I'll get it to you when I said I'd get it to you. It's not ready now. I got to have dinner with my family.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about staying true to yourself and being in the moment and now, and what is the most important. Like Tyler says, who's the most important person right now? Well, it's you, because that's who I'm with. What's the most important thing I should be doing right now? The thing that I'm doing, but it's about prioritizing. Is what is that thing that you're doing? Is it the most important? And are you using your time effectively? And they talk about big green frogs and big rocks, and they're all the same thing. Pick your big things and do them first, because that's when you're alert, your attention, you've started the day, to try and do your big stuff at the end. There's too many interruptions that you waste time on. So it's being alert and aware, and that goes with anything. It's the awareness around all of it that's where the magic is. Because when you're aware of it, you can change it.
Thank you.
It's a really big thing though, isn't it? Because prioritizing, I have so many things on my list. I'm always over ambitious, and in the end I'm like, okay, what are the things on that list that I might actually be able to get done? And then I transfer those ones to the next day that didn't get done, and that goes on all week, and it's like, oh, for God's sake, that was Monday's list, and it's now on Thursday's list.
Exactly.
That's the big rock, and that's what you need to do first thing tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why people tend to push the big rocks and just
because
deal
there's
with the little
something
rocks
about that thing that you don't want to do, or it's hard, or you're going to get a knockback, or there's something about it that, why is it that it keeps going on the list? So identify it and be aware of it, and try and go in the back door and figure out what.
I'll give you an example. Like when I started doing this, I had been meaning to go to the chiropractor because I knew our chiropractor was going to be like quitting, and and I'd been going to the gym for 6 months, and I know I needed to go because I was having, you know, some shoulder pain or whatever. And I was always like, I can do it some other time, or it's not important. I don't really need to do it. I've got other things to do. And then once I started writing it, I would sit there and go, so what's my big rock for the week? I'd be like, well, I should go to the chiropractor. So then I would pull out my list on Tuesday and go,
Oh, they can wait.
I'll call them right now. And then I would just pick up the phone and do it, and it was done. And I went 3 weeks in a row because it was on my list. And when I looked at what my big rocks were, I said, well, that's the big rock. I'd better just make the call now. And it happened. If I didn't have it written down in front of me as a big rock, I just pushed it to the next week. And I did that for months.
And sometimes you have to look at that list and go, you know what, that's actually not important and I don't need it on my list. So get some of the things off your list and do the things that are on your list and then bring it back to your list. Because sometimes your list or your goal list is so big that it's so hard and the mountain is just too high. So to look at that, you don't do it. You don't start. Whereas if it's little, you can climb a little hill. But to look at Kilimanjaro, stupid. You're not even going to try, you know. So bring it back a couple of notches and make them a bit more achievable and smaller.
I think I'm actually not able to have a realistic view of what can be done in a day.
Yeah.
Because I cannot get to bed at a decent time, and that I've started listening to the Miracle Morning again today to try and friggin' get myself back on track. And like I've just been in a funk of not being able to get to bed before 12:30, and it's ever since I had to get ready to move house, and I did some massive days without like hardly any sleep, and it just went on, and I just cannot get back to getting to bed by 10:30, and it's like, oh, I need to be reset or something. It's
so you need to put on your list to stop.
Yeah, I even have an alarm on my phone that says it's bedtime. Go yeah, and carry on doing, you know, like, because I didn't get the things done in the day that I wanted, you know, like I'm like and I just keep going, and it's not productive because then the next morning I'm tired and
yeah. So at 10 o'clock at night, I'll send you a message. Go to bed.
Well, you know, it could be like for me getting up and going to the gym. It was a matter of just go to bed and say, I'll do it in the morning. I'll feel better in the morning. So
There's a
well, like last night I went
how much time sleep you need. And go, okay, I can get by on 7 hours. I'll just get up at 5 a.m. and I'll just do it straight away.
Or have a look at what you are doing. So spend the next 3 days like they do in some jobs where you account every 15 minutes or 30 minutes and assess what you are doing with your time and see how much of that is in the waste bucket. You know, in those 4 quadrants, just really analyze what it is you're doing with that time. You know, if you're getting up at 6 in the morning and you're still up at midnight, that's a lot of time. So what is it that you're actually doing? And in those chunks of time, if you're driving, then that's you're plugged in and listening to something time, or, you know, trying to make use of your time in a better.
Oh, I so do. I do all that. Like, you know, I'm trying to exercise and trying to I just am not getting my horse ridden at all. And that's one of the things that's really important to me. And that's where I feel very, very like I haven't achieved, because
that needs to go priority.
It keeps getting put aside because, you know, like today I was running around. I just couldn't believe that hours had gone by and I hadn't left home yet. And it was because I was running around trying to get people, you know, organised and doing emails and things that were urgent, because if I don't get people for this clinic this weekend, I'm going to have to cancel it. And it was just like suddenly what I had planned for the day totally went up in the air, and everything else had to become prioritised, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, and it's just repeating over and over. So, yeah.
Sounds like habit 3 is a good one for you to work on.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yes. You can stop the recording, Dawn. Okay, so I think that's probably enough tonight, unless anyone's got some